Then get out of here, you worthless scum. I never imagined hearing such words, especially right after buying our new home as newlyweds. My husband, Bob, was extremely kind and gentlemanly when we were dating, but now he acts as if he shed that kind facade, treating me horribly. Since his parents moved in with us, things have become even worse. I feel like I have no allies in this house. But Bob is completely unaware of the true story behind this house and its ownership. It's about time I come clean and tell Bob and his parents the truth. These people, thinking men are superior, are in for a shock. How dare they tell me to leave? They'll soon realize they're too late. My name is Sarah. We got married just last year. Before getting married, my days were filled with going back and forth between work and home, and I had often wondered about my future. Seeing my high school and college friends getting married one after the other, I began to think maybe it'd be nice to share my life with someone. It's cliché to say, but finding someone is a mix of luck and fate, and things don't always go as planned. However, my life took an unexpected turn. Excuse me, did you drop this key? That simple incident at a mixer led me to meet my current husband, Bob. I had carelessly dropped my house key, and he picked it up for me. Our conversation took off from there. That keychain, did you go to that concert? Yes. A friend invited me, and I became an instant fan. Do you know about it? I'm a huge fan, too. I have the same keychain but in a different color. Showing me his variant of the keychain, he continued. What a coincidence. I don't know many people who are fans. This is exciting. Same here. Would you like to chat for a bit? Our shared love for the concert and the artist led to a spirited conversation, which then transitioned to a cafe nearby. We exchanged numbers, and our relationship grew quickly from there. Life is full of surprises. Meeting someone with shared interests and getting married made me incredibly happy. Married life was blissful at first, but I distinctly remember the day the storm clouds began to gather. Bob started opposing the idea of me working full-time. People will think I'm making my wife work, you know? Couples working together is the norm nowadays. Besides, I've been working since I graduated from college. You're okay with people thinking I can't provide for you? Saying that, he aggressively bit into his dinner roll. I want to be the main breadwinner, and I want you to primarily take care of the home. So, you want me to be a stay-at-home wife? Yeah, but not entirely. Maybe you could work part-time or something. Just because you say so doesn't mean I'll find a part-time job easily. You were just doing basic clerical work, after all. I'll look the other way until you find something. Just do your best. I didn't understand why, even when I was willing to comply with Bob's wishes, I was still subjected to such demeaning comments. Referring to one's wife as just someone doing basic clerical work and being condescending was unsettling. I began to dread our future together. Luckily, I found a suitable remote job, ensuring a steady income equivalent to part-time work. While Bob earned outside, I balanced work from home with household chores. It seemed to be working out well for a while. But then, something happened that shook our relationship to its core. One day, I overheard Bob on the phone. He seemed quite agitated. Though I couldn't hear the conversation, my curiosity was piqued. Hey, what's been going on since this morning? Did someone call? Yeah. My mom seems to have twisted her ankle falling down the stairs. Apparently, it's worse than she thought, and she can't even walk properly. Oh, that's tough. How long do you think it'll take her to recover? Bob then looked at me with an expression that seemed like he had a bright idea. How about we let my mom stay with us until she heals? It would allow her to focus on her recovery. But if your dad's with her, we don't necessarily need to have her move in with us. Dad's getting on in age. You expect him to handle all the chores and care by himself? Sarah, you're at home, so help out. I couldn't argue with Bob once he put it that way. Sometimes Bob can be very logical, and he tends to bombard me with sound arguments that disrupt my train of thought. I didn't mean it that way. But considering your dad's age and needing to support your mom on top of household chores, it must be a handful. When I was younger, I caused my parents a lot of trouble. It's not exactly paying them back, but I just want to do something for them. Hearing Bob's words, I felt ashamed, realizing I had only been thinking of myself. That's very considerate of you, Bob. If that's the case, I'll be glad to help out. But I've only met your parents a handful of times, so the idea of living together, even for a short period, is a bit nerve-wracking. Don't worry. My mom and dad won't bite. Just be yourself. Bob tried to brush it off with laughter, but in hindsight, I wish I could go back and kick my past self for even considering living together so lightly. It's too reckless to suddenly live with people you barely know. I wish I could warn my past self right now. Initially, living with Bob's parents seemed to go well. However, the harmonious balance began to shift over time. While my father-in-law was all right, my mother-in-law seemed to have an opinion about everything I did. Sarah, isn't the rice a bit bland? I'm sorry. You're not serving this kind of rice in Bob's lunchbox, are you? Yes, I often pack leftovers for Bob's lunch. My mother-in-law let out a big sigh and glared at me. Leftovers in the lunchbox? Aren't you supposed to think about what your husband might want to eat that day and make it fresh in the morning? Just throwing in yesterday's food. Is that such a big deal? Watching our exchange, Bob, instead of supporting me, sided with his mother. That's right, Sarah. You're always at home, but you can't even properly prepare lunch. It's a bit disappointing. You can't even fulfill your duties as a wife and still have a full plate of food. I was at my wit's end with the constant nitpicking that felt like a scene from a soap opera. My father-in-law would glance my way when I was being criticized, but quickly look away again. If I continued this way, I felt like I'd mentally and physically break down. Initially, before we got married, we both agreed we wouldn't live with either of our parents. But now, to have them suddenly move in with the newlyweds and face a constant barrage of passive-aggressive remarks, what was this all about? I reached my limit and tried to discuss the situation with Bob. But his evident annoyance became clear. No matter how much I spoke up, Bob wouldn't truly listen. So, I decided to approach my mother-in-law with humility, hoping she might be more understanding. Can I talk to you for a moment? What is it, out of the blue? To be honest, Bob and I have our way of doing things and our own routines. I thought it might be good to review how we live together and see if there's any advice you could give to help us all get along better. She snorted and turned her head. Reviewing your lifestyle? Isn't that just a result of your own lack of effort? And casually addressing the mother of the head of the family like that? I'm sorry. I just thought we should try to find a compromise so we can all live together more comfortably. I mustered the courage to speak. If she thought I'd stay silent and let her walk all over me, she was sorely mistaken. I hoped at least that would get through to her. You're trying to kick me out, aren't you? After all, I'm just trying to teach you since you're clearly lacking. Aren't you even grateful? Grateful. Who's teaching you about the customs and traditions of the Johnson family? I've been taking you under my wing and guiding you every step of the way. I'd heard that my mother-in-law also married into the Johnson family, so I wondered how my father-in-law felt about everything. When I tried to catch his eye, he quickly looked away. My mother-in-law, being a woman of many words, could blow things out of proportion. At first, I thought if we lived together, maybe we could at least get along a little. However, as I came to the realization that it was impossible, words just poured out of me. I've had enough. Please leave. Just then, Bob walked in, witnessing the exchange between me and his mother. He turned to me, yelling angrily. Well then, you get out, you good for nothing. He slammed the door open as he shouted. Bob, when did you get home? I got a message from Mom after I finished work that you were being horrible to her. I rushed home and what do I find? You. But I've tried talking to you so many times. I told you I want to get along with your parents, but I just don't know how. Do you always need my advice for everything? This is just like you, never thinking for yourself. That's why you're so useless. He pointed towards the front door, continuing his tirade. You're not fit to be my wife. Until you apologize and Mom forgives you, I won't either, so get that straight. Is this even real? Listen to me for once. Your stories aren't even worth listening to. I've said it before, just get out. His father, who was sipping tea nearby, avoided making eye contact with me. I remember the brief moment when he looked up, his expression was one of unease. Deep down, I was elated that my husband finally said what he wanted to. Holding back my laughter, I decided to remind Bob of some facts. Wait, did you forget? Forget what? Do you not remember everything we went through to buy our house? That was the story of our journey to homeownership. Right after getting married, we started looking for a place to stay and eventually settled on buying our own home. I would have been fine with renting, but Bob was insistent on purchasing a house or apartment. Why not rent for a while? There's so much uncertainty with possible job transfers and children. Plus, saving up some more might get us a better house down the line. Rent? Why would we live in a rental? It's a once-in-a-lifetime purchase, right? Maybe if we save up a little more by renting first, we could get a better home. Bob slammed his hand on the table, raising his voice. That would be too late. With our marriage, I want to act like a proper head of the household. Don't you understand that? Just because you buy a house doesn't mean you've achieved everything. But if you feel that strongly about it, I won't oppose. Still, why are you so obsessed with getting a house right now? Bob responded, clearly agitated. A junior colleague at my office got married last year and bought a house soon after. Oh, the one you transferred here a few years ago? The one you often talk about? Yeah, he came here 3 years ago. Despite being bad at his job, he was sharp about this. I just can't stand that. I was taken aback by Bob's unexpected response. I decided to ask him for more details. Why can't you stand it? Normally, juniors should follow their seniors' lead. If they can't follow this simple hierarchy, how can they be trusted with work? Don't you think so? Everyone's different, Bob. Honestly, I was a bit put off by Bob's apparent jealousy and vanity. However, I knew he had a strong resolve, and once he made up his mind about something, there was no changing it. But the real shock came when we were about to sign the contract and found out we couldn't have the house in Bob's name. Why the heck can't I? I've been working hard in this company right out of college, moving all around the country. There's no way I can't get a simple home loan. There's gotta be some mistake. While Bob was causing a scene, I scanned the document handed to me. At a glance, it stated that there were issues with Bob's credit history, making it impossible to secure a loan. I wondered if maybe we could secure the loan if it was in my name instead of Bob's. I decided to suggest this to him. However, explaining the details to a panicked Bob seemed futile. You just want a mortgage for our house, right? We can request another review with your name, but how about also trying with mine? You think they'd give a loan to a woman? It might be a long shot, but it's worth a try, right? If it goes through the second time, we'll be able to buy our house. I tried to calm a shocked Bob and decided to request another credit check, this time for both of us. To ensure Bob wouldn't be shocked by the results, we had them sent to my parents' place in the neighboring town. Soon, I got the news from my family. The assessment showed that a contract could be made if it was under my name. Unexpectedly, we could secure the contract in my name, and I was relieved when we found out we could get enough for our home purchase. Regardless of whose name it's under, we're buying this house together. I didn't want to ruin his mood, so I only told Bob that we could secure the loan and kept the details about the names a secret. So, in the end, there's no problem securing the loan, right? Yeah, now we can finally have our dream home. All's well that ends well. I knew it. There had to be a mistake. How could they deny a contract to someone who's been with a major corporation for years? Name value matters, doesn't it? I didn't want to burst the now upbeat Bob's bubble. Truth be told, the house contract and mortgage are all in my name. Now, the reason we had to secure the home loan in my name and not Bob's is significant. Bob's carefree nature. I knew he'd previously borrowed student loans but hadn't always paid them back on time. I won't forget seeing his apartment's mailbox stuffed to the brim with letters. Don't you check your mail? You might have some urgent or important stuff in there. I'll check when I feel like it. Sarah, you really notice the little things. Back then, I couldn't press further, but I did notice some overdue notices. Looking back, our marriage has been full of mishaps. His credit cards often got declined because he didn't keep enough money in the bank. This recurring issue eventually led to his card being terminated. When I noticed credit card bills cluttering our home table, some were already overdue by 6 months. Hey, about those letters on the table. The ones with the payment slips? I'm not sure about them. I'm too busy. Can you handle it? Can't you just take a look at what it's for? Suddenly, Bob became irritated and grumbled his way to the bedroom. I've got work to do. Can't you handle such trivial matters? I'll never forget how he just carelessly shoved his responsibilities onto me without even giving it a proper look. I went and made the payment as he asked, but given the significantly overdue deadline, it was no surprise his credit card was no longer usable. Considering the student loans and credit card debts, it's no stretch to imagine that Bob's credit history was a mess. Despite it being his own affairs, did he not remember? The words almost left my lips. Before our home purchase, Bob's carefree nature caused a lot of issues. I wonder if his mother is even aware of his credit problems and his inability to secure any loans or credit cards. Bob, seemingly recalling something after hearing my words, wore a startled expression.
You're not saying the house contract is under your name, right? There's no way you, a woman, could handle that.
Then, noticing Bob's demeanor, his mother chimed in.
What's the matter? This house belongs to Bob, the head of this family. You should just leave if you have an issue. Since when did this house become Bob's? It's always been his from the start. In fact, if you want to stay, maybe you should get on your knees and beg.
For his mother to say something so ridiculous. Ignorance is a sin, and it's embarrassing. It felt like that phrase was made for her.
Could you please stay quiet for a moment? If it makes you feel better, you can kneel before me right now. Why should Bob or I bow down to the likes of you?
I got up from the chair and muttered to myself.
Where should I start explaining to her?
Suddenly, Bob grabbed my shoulder and exclaimed.
Stop it! Don't say anything unnecessary to Mom.
What's the problem here? Ignoring their voices, I moved away from the dining table and went to retrieve some documents from the safe in the next room.
Take a look at these. They were made when we bought the house.
His mother briefly glanced at the papers, then tossed them aside. His father picked them up and started scrutinizing them. Sighing, he looked at me, probably pondering something.
Is this some contract or something about the house that Bob bought? Look closely. Both the mortgage and the ownership of this house are under my name.
His mother almost jumped out of her seat.
That's impossible. There's no way a woman could have a contract over the man of the house.
Well, it's the truth.
All thanks to Bob's careless personality, though. Who are you calling careless?
She closed the gap between us in a rush. If she's going to push it this far, it's time to lay all the cards on the table.
You mean to tell me you haven't noticed Bob's recklessness? He rarely meets any payment deadlines, and I've had to cover for him most of the time. You really can't believe that? He's been out of the house since high school, so I have no idea about his life after that. And so what if he made a few mistakes at home? Why make a big deal out of it?
I handed her a document detailing his credit history.
What's this paper? It shows that Bob has no financial integrity because he's careless with money and deadlines. Integrity? What are you talking about? You really don't know? If you did, you'd realize how embarrassing it is to owe money and act like everything's fine.
His father was glaring fiercely at both Bob and his mother. I had never seen him look so intense. He's usually reserved and avoids making eye contact. Bob and his mother, on hearing my words, turned beet red and started trembling. What I was telling them had shaken them to their core.
You badmouth your own husband. Don't you think you're lacking the awareness of being a wife?
His mother always sides with Bob, but there's a limit. I pulled out an envelope.
It's not just Bob, ma'am. Taking and spending someone else's money without permission is the start of theft. So now you're calling me a thief? That's a terrible accusation. Who's the real thief here, trying to steal my son from me?
She seems upset, thinking I stole Bob from her through marriage. But I calmly told her.
There are some strange charges on my credit card statement that I don't recall making. Doesn't that seem odd to you? Why are you pinning this on me? Don't blame others.
She's still trying to play innocent. Talk about not knowing when to quit.
Didn't you use my credit card at the convenience store near the station last week? Turns out, an acquaintance of mine works there and saw you. You're lying, right? Do you think I am? I can even tell you what you paid for. Want me to list it? So what if I did? Bob's my son, so anything that belongs to him belongs to me too, right? Making a big fuss over nothing. You have no common sense.
It's ironic that a woman with no common sense is lecturing me about it. Using someone's credit card without permission is a crime, you know.
I might have just confused it with some loyalty card or something. That's not gonna cut it. My friend clearly heard what you were saying. You can't just claim ignorance.
I didn't miss the way her cheek twitched.
You're so sneaky, always doing things behind the scenes. Who's the sneaky one here? My friend told me you said, it's my daughter-in-law's card, so it's fine, while paying at the register. And you know, that store has security cameras. If I went to the police, they'd take action. You're gonna throw me in jail?
Hearing this, Bob chimed in.
We're family living under the same roof. Isn't it a bit much to hold a grudge over just a little credit card use?
With all the nonsense, I just wanted this to end. I took out my phone and said,
I've reached my limit living with the two of you. Let me say it one more time. Leave my house.
As I said this, I showed them the phone screen, ready to call the police.
If you continue to deny the credit card issue, I'll report it as theft to the police. And I can't live with Bob anymore. You're gonna abandon our marriage just like that? Aren't we supposed to support each other? I never thought I'd hear you talk about mutual support in a marriage. Fine. If you won't leave, I will. Expect the divorce papers soon.
Bob pleaded, not wanting a divorce, while his mother kept muttering about the police being a bluff, and his quiet father remained silent as usual. For me, I had said all I needed to. I already consulted with a divorce lawyer, and it was just a matter of letting them handle things. I never imagined they'd be like this, but maybe it was a blessing in disguise to see their true colors so soon. In the end, Bob and I decided to divorce. The lawyer said Bob and his mother resisted until the very end. At first, they were defiant, saying things like, I might still forgive you now and you lack the awareness of being a wife. However, as the lawyer calmly explained everything, their confidence waned. Clearly realizing they had no case, they gave in. After I moved out, Bob and my ex-in-laws continued living in the house without permission. But considering I own the house and we're no longer family, I don't owe them anything. Through the lawyer, I gave them a choice, move out soon or pay a much higher rent than market value. They chose to move out. Furthermore, having seen his wife's true colors during this debacle, my ex-father-in-law surprised everyone by filing for divorce. He had been quiet throughout, but there must have been things he couldn't overlook. Now, he lives alone using his savings, while Bob and his mother seem to be struggling. Bob tried to take care of his mother, but soon after, he faced issues at work. He had been treating a junior coworker terribly at work, which led to reprimands from upper management and resulted in a demotion. Apparently, his salary was cut and his position was lowered. It was quite a sorry state. Eventually, he resigned but hasn't found another job, forcing him to live in poverty. What goes around, comes around. After our split, I've been enjoying my solo life. Not having Bob and his mother around is such a relief. I didn't realize how stress-free it could be. Sometimes their actions still infuriate me, but I focus on my work instead of dwelling on it. Through a friend's recommendation, I started working at a new workplace and find myself tackling unfamiliar tasks every day. In this new environment, I'm also considering obtaining certifications, so my days are pretty busy. But I kinda prefer being busy. It keeps my mind from wandering, making things easier on me. On my days off, I love cafe hopping and enjoying some reading time. It makes me feel truly happy. Right now, I cherish these moments of personal joy and contentment.